Welcome to the second of our 12 financial literacy webinars presented by Gainbridge, a digital platform of financial products and member of Group 1001, an insurance holding company. My name is Cheryl Lala Chavez, and I'm joined each month by Lauren Williams, a four-time Olympian and certified financial planner. In each of our episodes, we'll have a Parity Athlete ambassador. This month, we welcome Lois Cook, a wide receiver and vice president of DC Divas Football. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
I am so excited to talk to both of you tonight. Let's get the party started.
Let's do it. So today we're going to be talking about all things budget, how to build a budget, how to create some healthy financial habits while managing various streams of income. Lauren, let's get started with you. Why should people even have a budget?
Ooh, well, there's some famous quote, a famous person, I'm not sure who the famous person is, that says, if you don't tell your money where to go, you will always be wondering where it went. And I thought it was kind of like a weird saying at first, but over the course of working in financial planning, I have learned that that is exactly right. The biggest problem that people come up against is not having a plan for their dollars. It's just like, oh, money comes in, money goes out, I make it work, the bills get paid. But they wonder why they can't save. They wonder, sometimes why they're in debt. And it's this idea of not knowing how to say, hey, money, you have a job and this is your job. Go do this versus, hey, it's doing this right now, or this is what I want to do in the moment. And so there's money to be taken care of to do this or that.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, Lois, as we're sitting here kind of, consuming this information, how do you decide, to give your money a job, I guess? How do you decide between those needs and wants, especially as an athlete and a mom to 4 kids?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, that is a really good perspective to look at it that way. That's awesome. I love that so much. But like you said, me as an athlete, and I'm a mom of 4 kids, I am constantly on the go. And so for me, it's really important to be prepared and to kind of make sure that I'm organized, because if I'm like running late or, when things happen that are off schedule, that's when I'm starting to try to pick up the slack. For example, maybe I'm rushing to practice and I totally forgot my water bottle at home. Now I got to go buy a new, I got to buy some more water. So little things like that, I think, kind of factor in. So for me to make sure that I'm organized, knowing exactly what I need and what I want, and knowing the difference between the two. And sometimes that definitely gets hard to find mine because coffee for me is a need, but it's really a want. But I look at it as it's absolutely necessary. But again, I think it just comes down to me making sure that I'm organized and prepared in advance, and that helps me to recognize where I'm, what category that fits in. Obviously, utilities and rent and things like that are for sure needs, and making sure that I prioritize those things. But again, like I said, sometimes it gets to be like a fine line, and I have to really understand where I can draw the line between what I want and what I need.
I think you brought up such a good point, Lois, about the idea of, being organized, because I think financially organized is one piece of the puzzle, but organized in life is a whole nother piece of the puzzle, because money is ultimately a tool to help us live the life that we want. And we've got to be able to kind of use it to navigate just normal things. So that example of the water bottle is like a perfect example. You're like, I'm not going to practice with no water, but I'm also not going to drive 20 minutes back home. But yet, and still, when life throws something at us, it sometimes, affects our pocketbook, and it, affects the budget and the way that we want to spend. So if in that moment, what would probably be a want, it's like, I don't need to buy water at this store, it costs extra, is absolutely a need. And so like you said, it kind of shifts over. Or if you're going to be super cranky all day and not have your coffee, like, I want you to have the coffee, and I need you to have the coffee.
I should, yeah, absolutely.
Right, but of course, we know that things like it's better to make your coffee at home, and instead of paying multiple dollars at a fancy shop. But it's all about, like you said, creating that balance. And I think that's one of the biggest misnomers about a budget, is the idea that you're going to be rigid and you have to do it just like this, and if you mess it up, you're in trouble and you got to shame yourself if, it's like, no, life is absolutely happening all the time. The budget is put in place to kind of give you some guardrails, give you some parameters, so that you now can, have a roadmap to be able to reach your goals. But just like in sport, we plan the game to go exactly like this. We're going to win, we're going to execute, and then all kinds of things go left and we just got to act it out.
Exactly. Adversity kicks in and then you just got to go with the flow.
Right. It's not that we didn't prepare, we did, but then these curveballs came.
Right.
Yeah, I think that flexibility makes a lot of sense. And so, that's why we're kind of talking about creating a budget now. Gainbridge, the sponsor of this video, has a financial education center on our website. Under the Building Financial Capability module, you'll uncover a series of articles focused on budgeting for yourself and even as a family. This information is free and available to anyone trying to build a budget, as we're talking about, set healthy financial goals, manage debt, and volatile income. So we'll kind of go back into kind of the volatile income. Lois, does your income vary as an athlete?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it does. For me, I don't have a set salary. I pretty much go with I look at it like a freelance kind of situation where, I get what I put in is what I get out. And women's football doesn't pay salaries the way that men's football does. So for me, I have to supplement and find ways to make, an income outside of just being on the field. So it definitely varies. It depends on sponsorships and campaigns and promotions and things like that. So it could change from the day by the day.
Yeah. And so, Lauren, when you're thinking and working with someone like Lois, where there's like multiple streams of income, various, income streams, what is something you recommend?
Ooh, one of the first things that I recommend for people that have varying or fluctuating income, as we call it, is to try to stabilize the income. So the way that you stabilize your income is looking at, what are my basic needs? What are, those things that come in on a regular basis that I need to just live? So, take care of the kids. If there's daycare involved or private schooling, there's, keeping a roof over their head, feeding them. There is a baseline set of expenses that everyone has. And you first have to understand what that is. So let's say, as an example, it's $2,000 a month. Well, we know that's $24,000 over the course of the year then. So it's like, okay, I've got $24,000 of expenses on an annual basis. So when this big check comes in for maybe like $7,000, I can't just say like, woohoo, it's time to play. It's actually like, okay, I've got 3 months accounted for and 3 months until I need to get additional income coming in. And at some point, maybe you have a really great year, you win the championship and they give you a $20,000 check and you already earned $10,000 for the year. So now we're at $30,000. Yes, I'm speaking into existence.
Right. I'm claiming it, okay?
So now we got $30,000 total in this example. Well, now we only needed 24 to hit our baseline expenses. You're covered, and then you can start to give those additional dollars a job. And so that could be additional savings, that could be starting to save for retirement, building your emergency fund. There's all sorts of different jobs that, that extra money could have. But the first thing you want to do is like get that baseline amount saved up for or accounted for in some way. And then, as money kind of comes in, it's like, okay, this is money on top of what are my baseline expenses? What other things do I need to cover? But we all have a baseline, and that's the easiest way to kind of stabilize your income when like, oh, this money's coming in and then no money's coming in for a while. Like, super frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really good point because like I said before, like I have different, depending on what, maybe it's a sponsorship or a campaign, it could be a drastically different amount. And so like you said, like, I think, maybe if there's a big check coming in, it's identifying or understanding that, maybe I want something, but just because I have this check doesn't mean I can actually, it's that baseline, like you said. I love that because you've got to be able to, space it out and have some time with it. So
absolutely. I mean, it helps when you at least know when the next thing is coming, which sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. So like, oh, I got this one. And then I know I have another sponsor that's supposed to pay by April the 1st. Then it's like, okay, I can at least plan a little bit. But we also know that sometimes sponsors don't pay when they say they're going to pay. For us to be heavily counting on that money can also throw things off if we don't have a kind of clear plan, at least cover a couple months into when the next income is supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
So Lauren, I've heard a lot about the 50-30-20 rule. Gainbridge has a 50-30-20 rule calculator in the Financial Education Center as well. What's this rule and how is it valuable? Does it apply to this conversation?
Yes, yes, yes. It actually is perfect for this conversation. I'm so glad that Gainbridge has this option too, because I love the 50-30-20. Mine is a little bit different than the traditional 50-30-20, but I'll explain it in the traditional way. So 50% of your income should be going toward fixed expenses. And so fixed expenses are those things like the lights, the rent, or the mortgage, those kind of things that happen on a regular basis. I call them obligations. So those things that whether you have a job or not, you need to keep a roof over your head, you need to, keep the lights on, etc. Those are the things that are part of the 50%. And then the 30% is your variable spending. So variable spending being the, go out to the movies, have a good bowling night, go to a concert with friends. There's all sorts of different stuff that comes up as it pertains to like what our variable expenses are that go up and down and all over the place. And then the last thing is 20% of your income should be going to savings. And sometimes people are absolutely floored to hear this number. They're just like, what? 20%? Yes, if you make $100,000 a year, you should be able to save $20,000 on an annual basis. And so that's where the budget becomes so important, is because you can automate these things right into the bucket they need to go into so that you're not overspending. So look at it and say like, okay, I got let's say $10,000 a month. Like I said, we're speaking all the big numbers into $10,000 a month is coming in. That means 5,000 of it needs to cover your rent, your lights, car insurance, whatever else is, like I said, those obligation sort of things. And then you got $3,000 a month to spend on whatever, as long as you're saving at least $2,000 a month. So when big money comes in, it's like automatically got to get that $2,000 saved. You can get your bills paid for in that $5,000 bucket and still have $3,000 left over to have a good time with. And you can totally apply this as well to sports. So I always recommend, we have these expenses as athletes related to our sporting life, but we should also have a sports budget. And, kind of separating that out, using a different account. You don't have to necessarily set up a business account or get all fancy with it. But being able to say like this money is specifically for this, and then to start accounting for it is also very helpful. And using the 50-30-20 rule is helpful in that regard as well.
Thank you for defining that. Lois, I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts on this and kind of like how this could be maybe difficult as an athlete and a mom.
Yeah, so again, I think about all the being on the go so much that, and then you never know what's going to happen. Like I'm in practice, 5 days a week, maybe sometimes virtual and most of the time on the field. But again, I'm a mom of 4 boys. They like to do things too. So it's like, our household is like, we're all constantly on the go. We probably don't need a cable bill because we're always, doing something, but I love the 50-30-20. It just, and it's not something that I've been personally applying, but I found it through the Gainbridge module, and I thought that was like such a, again, going back to organization and making sure you have the organization and the preparation is what is really gonna help you or set you up for success. And the way that you put it, Lauren, just making sure you take off the top, take it off the top, what you're saving, and that 5,000, the half of it that you're putting towards your bill. And then when you look at it oh, well, now I have X amount of dollars to spend on whatever, then it makes it a little bit more manageable. So I really do love that. I definitely could use some improvement in a lot of areas.
But I love that you just kept it real. You're like, oh, I'm not implementing this in my life right now. And it's like, there's no one size fits all way to do anything. There's 15 different, there's probably more than 50, there's 100 different ways to budget. And not everything works the same for everyone. Everybody's brain, some people are audible, some people are visual, some people are super type A, they want to account for every single penny. Other people are like, oh my God, I would die if I had to write down that I spent $3.13 on a cheeseburger.
Right. Well, and then another thing I tend to do is whatever I'm budgeting, if I have whatever I'm spending on or whatever I need to plan for, I round it way up because that's how I am. Like, I know me and I know that that little wiggle room, I'm going to need it. But like you said before, it's a guideline, so you don't have to be like strict with it. But for me, I always like to try to go over and beyond because of those little areas that I need to improve on. But like, you know, and just so like tracking, just to be able to track what I need to spend on throughout the year is hard to do because I have 4 boys that go in all different directions. And then of course me, I'm going in all different directions as well. But yeah, that's super helpful. I just love the looking at it from an organizational perspective.
Yeah, I relate to you so much, Lois. You know, I'm a mom of 2, and I feel like there's always so many different expenses that are going on, you know, week to week, let alone like month to month. So,
Right.
you know, what I mean? It's like, it's
Yeah.
so hard. And I'm not playing anymore. You're still currently playing, but it's just so hard to manage like these volatile streams of income. And then also, you know, you're a parent and you're trying to make sure that your kid has everything they need. And it differs. It differs
Yes.
week to week.
Yes. Absolutely. Between like, whether it's sports and the season that, you know, maybe they're playing basketball or maybe they're playing soccer or whatever, or maybe they're going to daycare or maybe they're in, you know, some kind of other program, all of that stuff kind of like factors in and could be drastically different. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I know I falter in terms of like my motivation to stay, you know, stick with the budget, right? Stick with there. Maybe I don't have enough flexibility in there, but that's where I'm looking to you, Lauren. What do you advise for people like myself who just have trouble sticking to the budget?
I would say automate as much as possible. So if we go back, you know, the 50-30-20 is basically like some buckets. So you could get an account and make it really simple and say like, okay, what are all my obligations? One time, go through your whole budget. That way you're not having to micromanage, like, where's my money? And like I said, I spent $3.13 on a cheeseburger. So back to my example, we got $10,000 coming in. You can make one bank account, a checking account. That's where all the money comes into. And you have your mortgage, your utilities, et cetera, all the obligations come there, and you can put all the money, all 10,000 goes in, but you automate the 2,000 over to a savings account, and you automate the 3,000 to a second checking account. Now you can spend your variable expenses, all that stuff that's jumping all over the place, popping up on you from that variable spending. You know your bills are going to be paid every month, so you don't have to stress because all the money came into that account. You know you've had enough money in there. You know, 5,000 was probably more than enough. Maybe your bills are only 4,500. You know, and now money starts to pile up in there. So it kind of works like a little savings account. But you know you have everything good. We're going to be roof over our head and everything's fine. Now we get this variable bucket. It's like, like you said, the boys are got summer camp. Like that kind of came out of nowhere on me. Or summer camp is way more expensive because the cost of everything is going up. Well, you got this variable bucket, and maybe you eat out less that month so that a summer camp is taken care of. And then also you got your savings over there. So, you know, one thing about the savings is that it could be saving for retirement, it could be saving for a family vacation, it could be saving for an emergency fund. I would definitely prioritize getting the emergency fund done. And what I usually say about the emergency fund is that it should be 3 times whatever your regular monthly take-home pay is. If there is no regular, because we got fluctuating income as athletes, then it would be 3 times whatever those expenses are. And probably closer to 6 times because income is fluctuating. So you want to err on the side of caution when you know things are going to be all over the place. So automate as much as possible. Okay, this money goes here on the 15th of every month. This money goes here on the so-and-so of this month, it goes there. And it makes you not have to account for so much. So then you can easily stick to your budget because you're going to watch that variable expense, which is the fund money account, go down and down and down. And then you're like, gotta go sit down somewhere and chill out for a second. Right. But that's a really great way to look at things. The other thing I would say too is credit cards is a way to get people in trouble. So that's where people do a lot of their spending. They're trying to get points. You know, overall, they're trying to be responsible and not go into any debt. But the thing that's hard about the credit cards is that they're like 30 days in the past. So you're paying for something way in the past while you're spending in the present. So I recommend that variable account to just get a debit card and spend directly from there if you're having a hard time on a regular basis of keeping up with what's happening, you know, from a credit standpoint.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Lois, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I actually have always been against credit cards for that reason. Like, I feel like to me, it just seems like it's, you know, counterproductive. But I get, why it might be helpful for credit reasons and things like that, but I've always been like, I shy away from them a lot. But I also, for me, I love the idea of having the separate accounts so that you could see what you're able to spend and not try to, figure it out while you're on the go or while you're in the, in the midst of it. So I love keeping them separate to make sure that you're within your appropriate boundaries.
Right. It's an easy way to hold yourself accountable without stressing. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness, is rent gonna get paid? Like, did I mess all this accounting up and now the mortgage is not gonna get paid? Like, you're like, oh my God, it gets rid of so much stress to just separate everything out.
I think it's really interesting what you both bring up, because like for me, the rewards, like credit card rewards are so, I'm always attracted to them. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I open an account, it's 100,000 points. No one else is falling into that marketing. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I know we're not supposed to be talking so much about credit cards right now, but I mean, I always get lured in, right? It's like that they have the gift or they have the reward points or whatever it is. So don't do that, is what you're saying.
I highly recommend that you think of another strategy if you're only using the credit cards for the points. Like I said, at some point you get really good at budgeting. If you're having trouble with the budget, that's when I definitely say like kind of leave the credit cards alone and make sure you kind of keep those guardrails on. But if you're doing great with your budget and things are working out fine and you on a regular basis have money left over, then it's totally fine to use that credit card. And even you could use the same way we're doing the bucket. So our 3,000 of variable spending, you put only your variable expenses on that credit card. If it gets up to 3,000, it's the same as your bank account getting down to zero. You got to stop. $3,001, only 3,000 is in that account. So there's no other money to be spent. And so the same kind of guardrails can be put in place while using a credit card and getting the points, et cetera. But you definitely want to stay on top of it.
Good to know. Good to know. Lois, how do you build healthy financial habits for yourself and your family? How do you pass those values kind of along?
Well, with allowance, my kids get allowance, but they have to make sure they're not spending it. So we look at, I guess I wasn't looking at the 50-30-20 with them, but kind of, because they have to put aside a certain amount to save, but then they can spend. So they don't have the 50, but they have the 30-20 side. But yeah, and I also, as far as like healthy habits financially, I do, like I said before, like I like to have the separate account, especially like my rent is like mortgage and any kind of household bills. I keep that in a separate pot. Well, maybe not all of the, I mean, I could get better on that. Okay. But for sure the rent goes to one place because I know that's absolute, I can't touch that, so I definitely keep it. And I think this kind of goes along with knowing who I am and knowing how I am and knowing I'm about to spend a whole lot of money on coffee every week. But just to make sure that I don't touch that. And I think that's helpful for me just to make sure that I'm organized. Now, when I get certain, like my income as it comes in, one thing that I've been doing is taking, because I get multiple sources of income simultaneously, right? So I might take one piece of income and put it directly, all of that towards, household stuff. Or maybe I'll take another one and put it towards my own wants or something like that. So I think I think I would want to try the 50-30-20 up for, like, I don't know if it makes much sense or if it's going to make much difference, I should say. But instead of doing it that way and separating them by where they're coming from, I could just separate them for that whole amount and do the 50-30-20. I think that's a really great idea that I would like to try to maybe get better at.
Yeah. And Lauren, how do you determine like when somebody is like financially fit, or a family, let's say too, right? Is it different individually and then versus family, I guess?
It's not necessarily different for individually versus family. I think the biggest thing in considering financial fitness is how you feel. So the amount of stress you have around money. So there are plenty of people who save tons and tons of money. They're excellent savers. In fact, they're kind of hoarding their savings and they're super duper stressed. So they're probably not in the best financial fitness because they're just like, I got all this stuff and, I can't spend $1, and they're miserable in their home all the time. And then there's kind of the other end, which I think is more the common narrative of people are spending too much. And so they're not in a financially healthy situation. But I would say to, as you consider what your financial health looks like, it's about how organized you feel, how clear you feel on your ability to be able to reach your goals, and how clear you feel about your plan and the action items that you're taking on a day-to-day basis to be able to reach those goals. So, as I think about like kind of goals and plans and things like that, it's the same things that we do in our normal life as athletes. Like there's a championship, there's an Olympic Games coming up, there's the big prize down the end. What do I need to do along the way to be able to reach those goals? I need to run X number of races or compete in X number of competitions. But before that, I need to do X number of practices. So, if you kind of take a moment and reflect, have I been saving on a monthly basis? Has it been 6 months since I put something in my savings account? Like, well, it's the same as if it's been 6 months since you worked out. You got to get back on track, and it's never too late. We come after an injury, after 18 months off, and we come back and we start over. We just got to start putting those reps in. So I think one of the things we don't do is give ourselves enough grace for, okay, I didn't do it perfectly. I haven't been doing it for a while, but I know what it takes to be great as an athlete. I know what it takes to be great and to win at something. If I want to win with money, I need to start putting in the effort to get the reps. And I think that will help you become more financially fit. Working with a professional, the same way you work with a coach, to help you get organized with your finances. You can get financial coaching, you can get financial planning, whatever it is that is your need in that moment. But I think one of those things is like money is that thing that we all deal with. So you're like, I'm afraid to tell somebody that I don't really have it all together. I'm not, sure I'm in the best place. It's totally okay for someone. There's plenty of people out there who do money for a living. Day in and day out, our job is to look at money situations, to know these tips, to know these tools, to know the various, the myths that are out there, but also the things that are trending and making people's lives more easy and efficient. So if you want to get financially fit, don't be afraid to get a coach. I think that's one of the things that's really important.
That is a perfect, and like my life has changed just from you saying that. No, seriously, like that is the perfect analogy, and I've never looked at it that way, but that is like spot on. I mean, it speaks to me. It definitely speaks to me. I don't know about anybody else, but it speaks to me because, like we're, just thinking about like childhood and growing up and going through school, we don't have these like financial classes, or we didn't when I was in school, that really help you and teach you. And then your parents might tell, do but so much to kind of show you the way. But I love the way you just put that. It's definitely like practicing and like, putting in the effort that you need to make sure that you meet your goals. That is like, I'm a new person right now. Financially, I'm a new person. I feel good. We'll see about tomorrow, but I got to put it to
you are an elite athlete. So you just got to apply those athletic principles to your finances and you will be a winner.
Yes, that's it. I love that.
Yeah, I think we forget sometimes that, as elite athletes, we've done these things, we've done these hard things, and we can apply them to our finances as well, right? And so it's so funny, Lois, that was going to be my question to you is what are you walking away with from this webinar? But you just said it.
Absolutely. I mean, just I think it's just the perspective and just looking at it from a different lens and just having like this refresh, of a new idea or a way to organize my finances. Again, like I said, I want to, kind of look at the way that I'm distributing my 50-30-20 differently. I want to, definitely make sure that I'm more active, playing a more active role in my finances and making sure that I don't, kind of sway or go the wrong way or, just to make sure I stay on track. And I just love the different perspective that you gave, Lauren. So yeah, that's amazing.
I am so glad that it was helpful.
Like that was like, I had a moment, like
like, oh wait, she's talking to me.
Right. Yeah. Talking directly to me. It's like you were speaking my language. So yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. And so Lauren, as we kind of wrap up, key points for everyone to get out of this webinar, like what are the key points in building a budget and just having healthy financial habits?
All right. Number one, if you don't tell your money where to go, you will always be wondering where it went. So tell your money where to go. I would say the second thing is try to stabilize your income. I know that the majority of those listening are going to have that fluctuating income because that is the nature of being in sports. But make sure that you do the work to understand what it is your baseline set of needs are so that you know you have baseline income. And start setting your goals. You maybe need to get an extra stream of income coming in because you can't guarantee the sport's going to pay you enough or that whatever gigs you have going on are going to pay you enough. There's a baseline set of expenses, and we've got to be able to figure out, okay, how do I get the income to cover this baseline set of expenses? And then, above and beyond that, the goals that I have. And then to use the bucket method. Set up these buckets, whether you use the 50-30-20 rule or you decide to do something else, automate as much as you can and get your money in some buckets so that you can kind of let the stress off, let your foot off the gas and not worry about, like I said, whether or not you're going to make rent, not worry about whether or not you're going to be in debt. If you create the proper guardrails and the proper automation, it'll make it really easy for you to save, reach your goals, and live within your means.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And thank you both for such an engaging conversation on finances, budgeting, and creating healthy financial habits. I appreciate just both of you, your insights. Having this conversation is tough. So thank you, Lois. Thank you, Lauren, for just doing this with me tonight and, talking all things budget and finances. Don't also forget, you in the audience, to use this information for yourself by going to Gainbridge's Financial Education Center. You can use tools such as the 50-30-20 rule calculators we've been talking about, as well as creating a budget through the articles there as well, separating your needs and your wants, and then fluctuating income as well. Gainbridge, of course, is a digital platform committed to providing you direct access to trusted financial products and free financial literacy, such as this webinar and the education that's on the website, giving your future a boost. We'll see you next time when we talk about taxes.
Ooh, taxes.